should be. Alrighty. Good evening. It is what's today? Wednesday, July 8th.
January.
January 8th. I'm all over the place.
See what happens when you work with Paul Healy one night? You stop making mistakes.
Right.
The good habits don't rub off on him. The bad habits rub off on you.
Yeah. This is the cheap seats. Pat Holland and Kevin Callahan. Figuring we don't do this as often as we probably wanted to, but jump on every now and then when there's a busy week. And we felt like with the Patriots, we covered the Patriots Saturday on our normal radio show with, prior to their last game. We had Tyler Healy from the Sun Chronicle on, and we figured this is a good opportunity to jump on since we all know what happened after that game. But first things first.
And Pat, just to be fair to us, we've been typically trying for Wednesdays, and last Wednesday was New Year's Day. The Wednesday before that was Christmas Day, and we both had plans on those days.
And we did do the live World Junior Championship kind of preview on the Thursday after. So we've we missed a few weeks, but we're not far off from weekly. I hesitate to put every Wednesday, but we shoot. That's what we shoot for.
Shooting for it, yeah.
So quick recap of the let's see, the World Junior Championship finished up on Sunday
night,
and the U.S. won the first back-to-back gold medal that the U.S. Hockey team has ever won.
Yeah, first time ever going back-to-back,
beating Finland in overtime.
Yeah, 4-3, 3-on-3 overtime. Sudbury, Mass's own. Now I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Tommy Stiga.
His only goal of the tournament.
Yeah, he's a grinder. He's at BC boy. BC, one of the 6 on the team from BC, BU. Providence, all well represented, the Hockey East. But just, I posted about it, just, we've had many discussions about how it's just the greatest. I mean, for me, it's the greatest tournament there is to watch. Every year I wait for it to come up. It's 11 days, I think 11 days.
Yeah, it's about 11 days, 10 teams. It's USA, you play your 4 round robin games. Every team's guaranteed 5. You just hope you're not in a relegation round. You get, I think USA ended up playing 7, 6 to win the whole thing. 7 quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. So they ended up playing 7. So it's 7 games in 11 days. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. It just it's a great turn. Even the the I guess the lower quality teams, if you will, Latvia upsets Canada. They had a hell of a turn. Their goalie stood on his head.
He may have been named MVP of the tournament, or he was in the conversation.
Yeah, I'm sure he was in the conversation. I think the MVP of the tournament went to Ryan Leonard from Team USA, who was just a grinder. He had a great tournament. I think he had 8 points overall. Physical. So yeah, I could have seen it. I thought Cole Hudson was going to get it. He led the tournament in scoring as a defenseman, which doesn't happen often.
3 goals and 7 assists, or something close to that. 2 and 9, or it's.
I think he ended up with 11, so it was like 3 and 8.
3 and 8,
something like
plus
that.
Plus minus is through the roof as well.
Yeah,
got a plus 8, plus 9.
The interesting thing is, how things kind of played themselves out. Next year, Group A is going to have USA, Canada, and Sweden all coming out of Group A. because Sweden got upset. Canada obviously got upset by
But,
who they lose to?
The Czechs.
The Czechs beat them, so they finished 5th. Sweden loses. They finished in 4th.
Did you see? I didn't see much of the bronze medal game, but I saw the shootout. Did you see how many rounds the bronze medal game went in the shootout?
Well, it's 13 rounds, so 26 total breakaways.
I thought it went 15 rounds. I thought it was in the 15th inning where they scored. I could be wrong. I'll double check that, but I thought it was 15.
20, because I thought they had said 26 rounds, and then when I reread it, it said there were 26 total opportunities, so 13 rounds. Regardless, I mean,
yeah,
that's insane. And just just a great game. Czechia, and that's Michael Harabel, who's the UMass Amherst goalie. He had a hell of a tournament. That's 2 years in a row for him. So
hey Pat.
Yeah.
I just looked up. Czechia scored the winner in the 14th round of a shootout. Is what I'm reading.
So the next, so it was 13 full rounds plus the next round.
Yeah. So I thought it was 15. You thought 13. I just looked it up. 14. Either way, it's at a record.
Yeah, it was a hell of a lot. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What else came out of this? Trey Augustine became the most winningest goaltender in U.S. history. I think it's at all ages. So you 15, 16, 17, 18, up to 20. So he now holds that record, which is pretty impressive, given some of the goalies that have come through the national development team and whatnot. So, I mean, so next year it's in Minnesota.
Yep. St. Paul, probably at the Excel Center. And they probably have already identified another rink. Probably at the Excel Center in Minneapolis, and then probably another rink in St. Paul.
In St. Paul, correct, which is, I think, right over the river. I think there's a river.
Yeah, I think they're only separated by 8 miles. I've been to a couple of Frozen Fours out there, and the reason why they call it the Twin Cities, they are that close to each other.
Yep.
And great town, great hockey town. I've enjoyed the Frozen Fours I've been to out there as well. So in Minnesota, they actually hosted a Super Bowl a few years ago. My brother was out there, and they know how to put on a show. They'll do it right for the 11. I believe
that was that was the Patriots Eagles, I believe, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it was Patriots, so it's
Patriots Eagles. I recall that. Yeah, because they had the media mile, I think they call it, where they have all of the media stations set up. Was actually set up. I believe it was set up over in like the Mall of America.
Yeah.
So
with the roller coaster.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Anything else you have to say about the World Juniors? I mean, I love it. I think I missed the first U.S. game, but I watched it on tape delay at your house because I was out, and I maybe missed a little bit of one of the other games, but I watched probably 90% of the games that were played.
I would say I'm in the same category as amount of games. I taped the whole tournament. It was great that it was in our time zone this year, which is always nice. Next year it'll only be an hour difference, which is fine. As well, that helps, but with DVR helps even more, like when they're 10, 12 hours away.
Sure.
But it works out great. There's never more than 4 games in a day. And some of the games, you get Switzerland against the Czech sometime. The next thing you know, it is 10-2. And you can watch a little bit of it on fast forward. But you threw it in about 2.5 hours. You threw a game. Just remember to if you're gonna record it on the DVR in the future, remember to extend the games because Comcast in Mass usually extends games except for the tournament. For some reason, they didn't extend those games. So just extend the games to the next start time, or extend the last game an extra hour and a half to 2 hours. You should be good.
Yeah. All right. So we talked to Tyler on Saturday morning, right? We kind of did a full deep dive into the Patriots. What do we expect out of the game on Sunday? what did he think was going to happen? And for those of you listening and watching, Tyler Helu is the Patriot beat writer for the Sun Chronicle. So he had a lot of good insight. And then I don't think anyone could have expected that Mayo would be fired like within an hour after that game. Although, watching the game, I said to myself, I go, Buffalo is doing everything in their mind not to win this game.
Yeah.
Right. The whole, the punting from the third, and I get trying to get guys in to get whatever incentives there are,
the bonus,
and I think that's decent. But unlike Jerry Jones, who doesn't think it's decent, so he plays his third string quarterback, even though the backup only needs to play in it was 15 snaps for him to get his incentive, and he goes, "Yeah, we're gonna go with the third stringer today. See what he got."
Yeah.
I thought I thought Joe Milton looked great, and I was like, "Wow, he looks really good." And then I was kind of like, "Oh, he looks a little too good." But I did think that but there was no way Buffalo was trying to win that game.
I mean, they even replaced Mitch Trubisky with what was the name? Mike White, something like that.
Yeah. Punting from you get the ball on the 35-yard line. It's like, we're gonna punt it because the punter has an incentive. If he gets one more punt inside the 20, he gets $100,000 incentive. It's like,
right?
Are you kidding me?
It was. I threw a little post up there. I tried to beat people to the conspiracy theorists that Mayo knew before the game, and he didn't. He coached it up to win. Though I agree with you, I think Buffalo coached it more to lose, because what benefit is it to Buffalo for the Patriots to have the number 1 overall pick?
Well, exactly. I don't think he coached. I mean, I don't buy into the conspiracy thing. I mean, they sat. I mean, they basically sat May. They sat Gonzalez. They had a bunch of other guys out. It was interesting to see how well Milton played. I think I read somewhere where he had the second hardest throw in NFL history.
I did not see that.
it was, and I want to say it was 61.7 miles per hour. Wow. Love has the heart, and it's not by much. It was 61.9 this year as well. And then the next one is years ago. Brady's number 5, way back. But I thought that was interesting, at least to say the least. But I
saw a headline on Milton that there's rumors of teams that are interested in him now.
It wouldn't surprise me. No. Why not? He looked pretty good. He's a big dude. And essentially when they got him, I thought for sure they were going to turn him into something else, either a slot receiver or, maybe not a tight end, but just almost like I hate talking about it, but a Aaron Hernandez type guy, right?
Well, he was a good player.
he was a good player. Yeah. So, but not like a tight end like Gronk where he's in blocking, but more of a kind of slash slot guy. But that obviously he was pretty adamant. Nope. They talked to me and they want me as a QB, and I was like, all right, well, we'll see how that plays out. But
he got 6-year college career, so
yeah. So and ultimately, win or lose, would I love to have the first pick overall? I think there's certainly value to it if they're going to trade back and try to pick up some assets for it, but. I don't think there's a huge difference between 1 and 4. No, in terms of, maybe they lose a little bit of value on getting assets in return. But if they were going to draft someone straight up, Hunter could still be there. Or you just go, but, it's funny. Tyler had mentioned this wide receiver out of Arizona, who I'm not going to remember his name right this second, but who he's super high on. And I went back and watched some clips, and the kid looks outstanding. and I've seen him. It's funny. I've seen some people do a couple of the mock drafts and had him as the first pick overall. And then I was kind of thinking like, oh, I wonder if this is Tyler's mock draft. But I'll pull up his name in a second.
I'm trying to find it right now.
Oh,
when he said that, my mistake. I actually thought he was talking. I thought he was talking about Arizona Cardinal wide receiver behind Marvin Harrison. Oh, yeah, I didn't realize.
I initially did too, but then he kept talking about the draft, and I'm like, he got to be talking about someone else. And then he's then it clicked on me.
Oh, oops. Arizona State or University of Arizona?
University of Arizona.
Naturally, I just clicked on Arizona State. So okay. It was like it's a common name. I remember that.
I can't. You'd think it would be a lot easier to get. No. So, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I mean, obviously, Wolf, they're talking about keeping Wolf, which I think it makes sense given where they are. And this is that time where you're prepping for that draft. And it would be kind of silly to,
I'm sorry, Teteroa McMillan?
Yes.
McMillan, yep. 6'5", 212. He's a junior.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Yep.
Yep. There you go. Good stuff, Kevin. Good stuff.
Thank you. Found it.
So, and the cat, I mean, he seems to be kind of a freak. Obviously you're hesitant about taking a wide receiver that high in the draft. That's not, but hey, at this point it's,
right.
I don't really, I don't really care. We just spent a little bit of time talking about, you could look back at all these drafts and whom they missed on, who that, but then you can look, if you go do a deep dive back in, you're looking at like some of these teams. It's like, it would be like comparing the Pittsburgh Penguins, back when they had all those, multiple like number one picks.
Yep.
Missing on everybody. The Cleveland Browns had pick after pick, year after year after year after year, where they just missed, like outright missed on everybody they drafted in the top, at least in the first round. And there were years that they had multiple first round picks that they missed on. So I don't buy into the whole, hey, let's like look at the, the kid they drafted out of the last kid they drafted out of Arizona, and go like, oh, well, they could have had Metcalf and this. It's like, yeah, but it's easy to say that now.
Right.
Like, and it's easy to point right to Tom Brady, right? Well, he got drafted 199th overall. You don't think like,
right.
Everybody missed on him, including us, for the first like 7 picks we had, or 8, even more, knowing Belichick, right? I'm sure we traded down, picked up more picks, and the next thing you know, it's like 199. All right, let's take Brady. There's no way in hell you're telling me Belichick thought that Brady was going to be what he was when they drafted him at 199. He just thought maybe he could be a serviceable backup. We have the guy. It's Drew. They had just re-upped him. There's, no way. And then maybe he gets into camp and he sees, all right, hey, I see something. Still not knowing that he's going to be able to be what he was. And even the first couple of years, I mean, it wasn't the Tom Brady show. It was the Belichick defense show. It was the Brewskis. It was the Teddy Johnsons. It was those guys.
Willie McGinnis.
Yeah. So, as much as people love to, I mean,
overall in the draft year.
Yeah. And you could say, oh, they could have had McConkey this year. It's like, instead they draft these 2 guys and they can't even, one of the guys can't even get on the field. It's like, yeah, but it's easy to say that now. They could have McConkey because he put up huge stats. Let's wait. Give him another 2 years.
One of the things I've never really heard, listen to talk radio, reading stuff online, or I still read a paper. I still read Tyler in the Sun Chronicle, Brendan over in Woonsocket. Say the Patriots got McConkey. Who knows if they would have coached it where they threw him the ball? It's just because he's got great numbers elsewhere does not mean he would have those numbers with the Patriots. You like to think they would. But they just
Yeah.
fired the coaching staff because of ineptitude. You got to figure. So if they're inept, they wouldn't have schemed to get him the ball if they had drafted him.
and then and again, so I pretty much checked out on the Pats midway through the season. Maybe after the game in, did they play in Germany?
Yeah, they lost.
Yeah. So it might have been after that game where I wasn't as into it, whatever, I did watch to see Drake and I didn't, but I wasn't as into it as I normally was. So if you look at I don't really know what San Diego has. I don't know what other receivers they have. And maybe it's a matter of McConkey is as good as he was because their other receivers were getting the one, they're the best cornerback on the field or the best DB, right? Covering them. So he was the option that they would go to. And I mean, clearly that was the case with the Pats. They certainly weren't gonna throw to Gonzalez's side.
Right.
So they threw, the Patriots.
And when they did, Gonzalez played well for the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, I read his stats this year. I mean, they're off the charts. Somebody posted something, and it's just the amount of snaps he was on the field, the amount of balls thrown. He only gave up, I want to say on average, it was 26.8 yards per game.
That's it?
Yeah.
And he's going up against the number ones all year. And he didn't make a Pro Bowl? That's crazy. That's crazy.
That comes down to,
popularity.
It comes down to who you're playing for and all this other stuff.
Of course.
I'm not gonna be able to find it now, but I meant to save it. But he's a legit shutdown corner.
Right.
And so whoever's on the other side is clearly, that's going to be the emphasis on the other side of the ball for them.
Right.
So, in the Pats aren't going to adjust their defense and say, well, McConkey's beating us, let's put him on, because that's just not what they do. And that's not what, so there's that you have to, that has to be part of the equation, right? It's not about well, this guy went out and put up, more stats than the guy we drafted in one game against us. It's yeah, but who was covering him? We had guys who I never even heard of out there half the time outside of Gonzalez.
Drake May.
And Drake, yeah, obviously. But on the defensive side, there's got to be something to be said about. And now there's all this other stuff coming out, right? Steve Belichick was told he was going to be given a lesser role at some sort of other coach, DB coach or some other position, right? It's so yeah, he left. And that's out of spite. So that's basically Mayo saying, hey, you know what? I dealt with this for 2 years or 3 years, and now I'm running the show. So you're gonna, hey, you want to be linebacker coach because that's your role? Oh no, I'm gonna go be the defensive coordinator up in or whatever. I believe he was some sort of coordinator in Washington, right?
I think so. Before going to obviously UNC now, but Brian Belichick stayed on, which was weird.
Right, but he was in a lower role anyway. So
right.
But that was specific to the fact that Mayo never got the title. Steve was pretty much calling the shots. And there are, you've heard a little bit of back and forth, but I've basically somebody came out and said they knew from the get-go this wasn't going to work. And people, I forget who it was, but somebody said it seems to be something that is coming from an Andrews type guy, David Andrews. He's not quoted, but they're saying it's a comment that is coming from someone like a David Andrews who basically said right from day one it wasn't going to work. They didn't know how to coach. They didn't know how to coach up. They didn't know how to make adjustments. There was a lot of mixed signals coming from the coaching staff. And that's pretty clear and obvious.
Yeah, a lot
right?
of inconsistencies.
So,
The only thing I did hear from David Andrews was he really wants to play with Drake May next year. That was a direct quote of his.
Yeah, I think
that he wants to work
he'll be
hard
back.
and be back to play with Drake. So that's actually encouraging to want to have a player like David Andrews back working hard to play with Drake. He saw that much out of Drake May in his limited time on the field this year. And I don't even think the two of them played together. So we're just talking about practice. And then what Andrews saw during the year. So that's
we're talking about practice.
Practice.
Come
exactly.
On. That's practice. Little. I got to throw a little Allen Iverson in there. We're talking about practice.
Practice.
So where do we go? Where do we go from here? I mean, things are moving quickly, right? So, and I'm sure you spend enough time in your car. I spend enough time in my car. The talking heads are all out there. The Rooney rule is bogus. It's they're basically they brought in Byron Leftwich and Pep. So Byron Leftwich was the offensive coordinator. The last time he was in the league, he was the offensive coordinator at Tampa Bay, and it's Pep who is the offensive coordinator, I believe, at Houston. Both of them have been out of the league for 2 years.
Right.
So they get in-person interviews because that's the rule. You have to interview at least 2 minority candidates in person. They can't interview anybody within their division until after the divisional rounds, or anyone else until after the playoffs are over.
Until they've been eliminated. If they get eliminated, I think they can interview. If a team gets eliminated, I think that's when they can interview. So if you're, because you'll hear that every once in a while, like, oh, I'm surprised the Chicago Bears haven't hired a coach yet, and you find out that it's Buffalo against Detroit in the Super Bowl,
and they want to wait
Buffalo's offensive coordinator is a hot commodity, and you're like, oh, okay, that's why they haven't hired one yet, because they're waiting to hire the Buffalo Bills guy as an example.
Well, I think if it's in. Because I think the Pats already have an interview set up with Ben Johnson.
Yes, if and Vrabel's tomorrow, meaning Thursday.
Yeah, but it's only. Ben Johnson but if so, they couldn't. The Patriots couldn't set up an interview with a coordinator at Buffalo because they're inside their own division. But they can interview someone else outside of their division at any time. Before they're eliminated, otherwise they have to wait till after.
Well, I think they can get permission, because I just
if they have permission,
Patriots request interview with Lions defensive coordinator. Now I just saw that headline for the first time just now. But that goes with what we're talking about. So they can request an interview at any time. Because I think Josh Daniels took some interviews while the Patriots are on their way to the winning or going to a Super Bowl. So you can request. Now Detroit could say no, wait till after our season's over. But a lot of times they don't, and a lot of times it's like, okay, the interview could be Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, when they're just doing some film work or the day off anyway. And typically head coaches and owners don't stand in the way. Unless it's a lateral, they'll stand in the way of a lateral move. Belichick stood in the way of lateral moves. Linebacker coach for linebacker coach, or offensive coordinator for offensive coordinator, but will not stand. But they really won't stand in the way of a promotion.
Right. So basically, now the national talking heads are talking about the fact that they're skirting around the Rooney Rule by interviewing these 2 guys who they have no intention on giving the job to. I did hear, I forget who it was, but I did hear someone talking about, like, the spirit of the Rooney Rule isn't just about interviewing minority candidates and hiring them. It's also about interviewing minority candidates and then sharing thoughts in networking with other ownership within the NFL about, hey, we didn't hire this guy, but we think this guy's a great candidate. You guys should interview him as well. It's not strictly about a team by team. Like, you have to,
Right.
So
It's a way to help promote the names. And I forget the stats, and I can look this up too. But the number of minority coaches in the NFL, I think, is at its highest that it's ever been right now.
Yeah.
So it has worked. There's been an interesting take, Pat, and that I heard today that basically, Kraft, the Kraft ownership group, they fell behind the times because of Belichick, because they never had to go through this. I'll take, and I said, and I looked it up before we went on. I'll take it a step further. When Kraft took over in '94, Parcells was here. When he left, they went to Pete Carroll, and obviously when they got rid of Carroll, they went to Belichick. That was a little weird what Belichick was doing with the Jets and everything, but their whole process. So they really haven't. Gerard Mayo was the first one that they reached out when the team was bad as well. Like they've never sunk this low under the Kraft ownership group.
You got to remember, the Rooney Rule wasn't implemented until 2003.
And that's the other thing, Rooney Rule. Yeah. So you're going from 94 to 2003. By that time, Belichick was well in place. And the good point I heard was, they were behind because they're behind this whole thing because they never had a care. Yeah, we got Belichick. He's not going anywhere. Whether they liked him or not, they obviously loved him. He brought them to 9 Super Bowls. Did they like him at the end? I guess not, but whatever. But they didn't have to worry about anything in regards to Rooney Rule or coaching candidates or anything like that until this past year. And then they had under contract a minority coach in Gerard Mayo ready to go. Now you could argue that he didn't get a fair shot, but then I don't know who's leaking the information. It's very typical. Maybe it's typical all over the country. It's very typical of the Red Sox. I think it's now becoming typical of Kraft and the Patriots. It's a smear campaign because now all of a sudden Gerard Mayo is playing cards in the back of the plane after the Arizona loss. Why is this coming out now when all the beat writers, no one knew about this when it happened, but here it is 3 weeks later. And
it's certainly coming out, and they're talking about it from a perspective of it's coming out from the players. The players had a hard time with it. We just got our butts kicked in, and here he is up hanging out with the boys playing cards.
Right. Oh, and it's true. It's 100% wrong. I completely agree with the players. I don't always agree with leaking stories because I as much as I like to read this stuff, and I read it. Obviously, you read it. I listen to the talk shows as well. But that's all stuff that what Belichick did do, for better or for worse, was pissed off the media. Because he kept everything in house. How many people were disgruntled publicly with the Patriots under Belichick?
Did it happen? Certainly, but it was very, very rare and very limited.
Lawyer Malloy,
and it was, and look what happened to him.
Right. A couple others. I remember Damian Woody physically came out and said, or literally came out and said, I want more money. The Patriots won't give it to me. I'm going to sign with the Lions. I know they're not as good a team, but I want more money. I mean, you actually had to respect it because he's like, no, I'm doing it for the money. But that wasn't talking bad about Belichick or the Patriots. So it was like, so Belichick was able, this stuff had to have happened every single year under Belichick. And none of it came out. Not that Belichick was playing cards in the back of the plane, just other things. I'm sure it came up that nobody knew about. But yet the second things go sour, boom, here they all come. So
that's the nature. The nature of sports now.
4-13. Well, it's the nature of a losing program, I think is what it is. But for this stuff to come out. So what do you think? You think Vrabel's the next guy?
It seems to be that way. I mean, I'm not gonna believe anything till it's till he's at the podium and it's being announced. I mean, I'd love to see him. Supposedly has a whole crew ready to come with him. I've heard some inklings from some insider sources that I have that McDaniels could be one of them. McDaniel still lives in Westwood. He's still local. So which would be interesting. I'd love to see, what McDaniels could turn May into. They need to bring someone like that, unless, really it's either Vrabel. I love it, at least he has the coaching experience. He's been there. He's done it. Like Ben Johnson, as great as he's been, he doesn't have the head coaching experience at the NFL level. Certainly, I mean, there's a lot of people that say that Detroit is who they are because of him, and that, Dan, what's his name? Their coach there is the hype man.
Oh, Dan Campbell.
Yeah, Dan Campbell is just the hype guy, and so it'd be interesting to see. Obviously, I heard that he is probably the front runner for the Jaguars job, and that he would take that. I guess he's like really good friends with Mark Brunell, who has some connection. Obviously, we know he played there, but he has some connection there. So, and they got, obviously they got a good quarterback there, so he could step in and hopefully turn him around. And but so I mean, those would be the two guys that I would want.
Yeah.
Who else is out there? I mean, I've heard.
I like the Liam Cohen, Tampa Bay offensive coordinator. Had a real good year with Baker Mayfield this year as an offensive coordinator. He wants to be a head coach. He did say it was a dream of his to be a head coach.
Local kid.
Yeah, Warwick, Rhode Island, plays for his father at LaSalle, UMass Amherst, and a whole history of other places. I actually got him mixed up. I think I was telling you he played at Cumberland. That was, I think, his older brother that played at Cumberland because he was born in '85. So there's no way he would have been at Cumberland when I was at Cumberland. But I think he had a brother. No. But his father was a teacher at Cumberland when I was there.
Unless you were on the extended program.
Yeah, exactly. But I just pulled up Liam Cohen as a coach. He's a QB coach at Brown. He was a pass game coordinator and quarterback coach at URI, UMass quarterbacks coach, Maine offensive coordinator. Then he went to the Rams, assistant wide receiver coach. Then he became the assistant quarterbacks coach. Went back to college with Kentucky as offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. The Rams in 22, he was the offensive coordinator. Back to Kentucky in 23 as the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. And this year with the Buccaneers as an offensive coordinator. So he's not afraid to move around the country either. But he started, he's worked his way up. Still young, born in 85. So what does that make him? About 40 years old. Yeah. Young, should be able to relate. And, people talk about, bringing in a guy like a Sean McVay or somebody new. It's it might be the right progression. And then I don't know who you bring in a defensive coordinator, but it may be Cohen's not ready either. But it's someone young, could be exciting. And then you see Baker Mayfield, what's he on his fourth team? And then to have the year that he just had, it's pretty incredible. So you got to give Cohen credit for that as well.
So Ben Johnson, which I didn't know, Ben Johnson started his coaching career at Boston College as a graduate assistant.
Oh, no kidding! I didn't know that.
And then he was a tight ends coach in 2011. Then he went to the Dolphins as the offensive assistant in 2012. He was there 2013 to 2015. He was the assistant quarterbacks coach. And then he became the tight ends coach. And then he was the assistant wide receivers coach there from 16 and 17. And then he was the wide receiver coach there in 18. Then he went to Detroit as the offensive quality control coach in 19.
What does that mean?
And he was, I don't know. And then he was the tight ends coach in 2021, passing game coordinator in 2021. and he's been obviously the offensive coordinator since then. So 2022 to now. So I mean,
he's young too. He's actually a year younger than Cohen. So
yeah, he's 38.
Yeah. So that's a good one as well. I mean, I like going a little bit younger. No, Vrabel's not old by any stretch, and I actually like Vrabel's kind of coaching resume as well. So it's not just to lop on to Vrabel as the guy. But he's been around as well and has worked himself up, not just as the Tennessee Titan head coach, but before then as well, working his way up through the coaching ranks as well. Has dealt with the good and the bad. Obviously, he went coach of the year to being fired. So
linebacker. He was a linebacker coach at Ohio State, then defensive line coach at Ohio State for 2 years. Then he moved over to Houston Texans as a linebacker coach for a couple of seasons. Then he became the defensive coordinator there. And then he signed at obviously Tennessee as the head coach till 2023. And then he was he was a coaching and personnel consultant for Cleveland this year. Right? I don't put a lot of stock in that. Obviously, I mean, I don't go, Cleveland, they were terrible. It's yeah, but I'm sure he didn't have a ton of access, and he was probably just there to kind of give his opinion on a few things, but he wasn't drawing up the plays or doing any of that stuff.
It's in the Theo Epstein role.
Yeah, and it's probably like anyone else. Hey, he probably has a buddy there or some connection that said, "Hey, why don't you come here?"
Oh, you froze on my end for a second. You're back now.
Yeah.
Me and my computer.
So, ultimately, I would assume.
So I do think there are some good candidates.
Yeah. My guess is that they already have Vrabel somewhat committed.
There's one little wrinkle. Did you hear about it? That Brady wants Vrabel out in Vegas.
Oh yeah.
What's that?
So and then I read that Brady has already placed a call to Belichick to see if they could lure him away from North Carolina, which obviously would only take I forget what the buyout was. It wasn't it was like $1 million, wasn't it?
I think it was $1 million buyout.
Yeah, it was nothing. So
right.
That would be interesting.
He spent 3 days as the Jets, the HC of the NYJ. So I spent more time in North Carolina.
They got the what do they have? The 3rd pick overall?
Vegas?
No. Maybe I think that's the Pats finished ahead of them. So I think they all had the same record. Right? Yeah, Tennessee,
right.
New York. I don't know. I forget now. I was so whatever after the after the game. I was like, I don't really care what they have anymore.
Tennessee's 1, Cleveland is 2, the Giants are 3.
That's right. So Vegas has the 6.
Patriots are 4, Jacksonville 5, Vegas 6, Jets are 7, Panthers 8, Saints 9, Bears 10, and then it goes on from there.
Yep. So does he? I don't know. I don't know how motivated he is to get back to the NFL. I mean, ultimately, I think the big motivation for him would be to get the wins record.
Right. Which he's still about 2.5, 3 years away from. He's he's over 30 wins away.
Does he have it in him? Or is he more committed to now coaching with his kids, trying to, do the college thing and create a program at North Carolina and just kind of hang out with his young girlfriend?
Yeah, very young. College age.
Older. And maybe she's, I made a joke. I said, well, maybe she's taking graduate classes there for free because he's a coach there now. Maybe it's just some connection. They probably got married over New Year's and nobody knows, and she's getting a free ride to North Carolina for her MBA or something, right?
Yeah, because Belichick probably couldn't afford to pay for her to go to college. But
that's true. That's true.
So no, it should be. It's interesting. The other thing I heard this week is people questioning why they didn't get rid of Elliot Wolf, the GM, and I thought somebody brought up a real good point, of which I'm paraphrasing or adding my own little spin on it. You fire Elliot Wolf, and what he does is he goes in and deletes the files because they've been working on the draft, since the college season began.
Right.
So he deletes the files of all the stuff that they've been working on because he's mad. So you can't just get rid of Elliot Wolf, like him or not. Him and his team have been putting together analysis on players that you have to rely on. So you may want to change his role, or his role may change with a new coach. But I don't think you can just outright get rid of Elliot Wolf, well, like him or not. You actually need him and his information going into the draft, which is in April. So I think he's on board for at least 3.5, 4 more months.
Yeah,
with the Patriots, if not longer, if they want to give him another chance, depending on who they bring in as a coach and what kind of control he wants.
Yeah, which makes sense. And that's the ultimate. I think the other shoe on the Vrabel factor is, he's going to want some say in that. He's going to want some control over the operations, if you will.
As Bill Parcells said when he was coaching the Patriots, they want you to cook want you to cook the dinner, at least let you shop for some of the groceries.
Yeah.
And I would think Vrabel might fall under that category, only because he is experienced. Some of the other coaches that we mentioned out there that don't have the head coaching experience, maybe they're not as adamant about having control, at least not yet. So,
yeah. So we'll see. I think things are going to happen quick. I don't think they're going to wait too long. And at least that was a sense that some of the writers had kind of felt like, there'll be a hiring within the next 2 weeks max.
It could even be by the end of this week, depending on how these interviews go.
Yeah, if they're scheduled to meet with Vrabel Friday,
I think Thursday, tomorrow.
Thursday, yeah, tomorrow. Who knows?
Right.
You'll get and that you'll know right away if they sign him Friday, then yeah, this was already a done deal. He clearly made everyone well aware that he wanted to come here. He went to the Jets and met with them, I think, as leverage.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Hey, so funny thing is, I hear the Jets are kind of kicking around the thought of bringing back Sexy Rexy.
Sexy Rexy.
Which for them wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, I kind of thought about that earlier in the season, like, get rid of Covington and why not bring a guy like Rex Ryan in? Let him be the defense. I mean, I don't know if he would come and be a defensive coordinator, but
No, they want him as a head coach.
The Jets do, yeah. But I was talking about the Pats, like, I had mentioned, I had mentioned earlier, right? When the Jets fired Salah, I said, I would bring him in immediately as a defensive consultant. And then at the end of the year, you make him. Covington was way over his head, way over his head.
Right.
Van Pelt, I think, did an okay job of at least developing May and how much of it
and the tight ends. I mean, I have no problem with Hooper. I have no problem with Hunter Henry. Obviously, like the way Drake May came along, and now to the point where you want to go back, where Bledsoe had Marv Cook, and then he had Ben Wintercoats.
Ben Coach,
and then you go to Brady with Gronk and Hernandez, through the years as well. Jermaine Wiggins a little bit. I think he was a tight end as well.
Wiggy.
You set up these little safety nets, and that's exactly what Hunter Henry came and Austin Hooper. They became great safety nets, great receivers for Drake May and that security blanket. Plus, they block a la. You were comparing Gronkowski and Hernandez earlier. Hernandez did have the better hands. Gronkowski was the better blocker. Obviously, everyone remembers Hernandez. Gronkowski for his unbelievable toughness running up and down the field. But those two tight ends, and Henry had a great year this year. I think
everyone does remember Hernandez.
Yeah, everyone remembers him too. But I think Henry the leading receiver. I think he was.
I think so. Yeah, because they were so just all over the place. Everyone else, yeah, well, that too. But I do. I mean, they got some receivers that I think like Booty. I think the last game. I mean, look at him. He had over 100 yards the last game.
117 yards.
Polk. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. The jury's out. Do they bring? Obviously you bring him back, but
I'd like to understand. Last week, I forgot to ask Tyler because we knew on Saturday that Polk wasn't playing on Sunday. Forgot to ask why. Did you ever hear a reason why? Was he just a healthy scratch?
Yeah, I don't remember hearing anything. I think he really wasn't seeing much of the field anyway. So I don't think it really struck anyone as odd that he wasn't active.
In his last game, he was on the field for 55% of the snaps, but was only targeted twice. I think he was, and I think he only caught 36% of his targets this year. I mean, that's a absurdly horrible number. I'm sure some of the passes either from Jacoby or Drake weren't on target, but I mean there were so many times that he had 2 or 3 drops in a game that I remember watching the game saying, this is the number one, this is the best receiver going. This is who we drafted, and
well, you can't. He's the guy who you listen. You can't come out and shoot your mouth off about having the best hands in the NFL, and then you come out and you drop 6 passes the next game. It's like and you just never could put it together. So does he have some upside? And supposedly it was supposed to be his speed and able to create space, but I never saw it. So. Who knows? Obviously you bring him back, or it'd be interesting to see what they do outside of the whole coaching thing of what they do in with the draft and free agency, and do they get now? T. Higgins is saying he'd take less money to stay in Cincinnati now.
Burrow's been saying he wants him to stay. I mean, every chance Burrow has, he said he wants him to stay. Oh, and why wouldn't you?
Right, I would too if I was.
Have those 2 wide receivers, I wouldn't want to lose either one of them. Listen, if I'm Joe
Burrow. You don't think Joe Burrow and those guys are kicking themselves? The reason why they don't make the playoffs is because they lost the first game of the season to the New England Patriots,
16-10. No, they couldn't score. That team,
unbelievable.
The Patriots, ironically,
that's why it's
like, the Bengals on
in. Kansas City, did they pack it in? Certainly, they certainly did. But all you had to do is beat the team you're supposed to beat the first game of the season, and that game doesn't mean as much.
Right, exactly.
In the grand scheme of things, but
I'm not happy with the way Kansas City played the last game of the season either. But all the teams that are really complaining.
Themselves.
Go win week 1, go win week 7, go win week 5, whatever week that you were supposed to win, go win those weeks. When it comes down to the final game, you got no one but yourself to blame. However, yes, if I plop down $200 to go see that Kansas City Chiefs game live, and that's the only game I went to this year as a Chiefs fan, I would not have been happy. But the fans are the least of the concern of coaches and players. So, just
yeah. Well, and you said it. Maybe the last week, it might have been the week before. You got NBA guys who won't play back-to-back games, but you got a kid like Tyler Kolak from Cumberland who's playing in the G League at like 11:30 in the morning, jumping on like trains, planes, and automobiles, getting to the next game. And getting in the game and playing.
Yeah.
And then doing whatever he needed to do the next day, whether it be go back to the G League or stay in New York. And you got guys like, I get it, but you got guys who can't play back-to-back games or won't play back-to-back games, or
Right.
so
Yeah.
there's a difference between these guys who it's all about like I'll do whatever I can to get to the league, and these other guys who are like, yeah, I'm here, whatever. I don't
Right.
need to play every day. Babies, making
Well,
millions and
it's
millions of dollars.
yeah, it's Jelani Tavai coming out with the upset that the Patriots are booing and this and that, and not to get completely off topic, but there was another Boston team that was completely booed off the ice last night. That gives it away. The Bruins, like, fans are going to boo you. You put forth a bad effort. It's nobody booed the Patriots 3 weeks ago when they lost to Buffalo by putting forth that tremendous effort,
Right.
and they lost. Because I think most fans knew that Buffalo was a better talented team, but there's no excuse for not putting forth the effort. So you put forth all that effort, you play Buffalo really tough, chances to win. The more talented team won the game, Buffalo. Then you come out and you lose at home to the Chargers 40-7 with zero effort. That's what the fans are booing. Why were the Bruins fans booing last night? Not that they lost you to the Edmonton Oilers. It was the effort. They got outshot 39-24. Swayman actually played well in that. Yeah. It's the same. It's more of the same from the Bruins, and the fans are either getting tired of the players' effort, management's effort. We've talked about it on the show. Moving, from Montgomery to Sacco, I didn't like it when it happened. I called it musical chairs. And Montgomery was left without a chair, and they just moved everybody else up a chair, and they stopped playing musicals chairs. And it's the same team, no changes. And I'll take it a step further. Sorry, I'm off topic here, but unless the Bruins trade Marchand or Pasternak or McAvoy or Swayman, there we go. One of those four. If that's the only way that they'll make any sort of ripple effect on the Bruins this year, anybody else gets traded, you go trade Charlie Coyle, that's going to be like, oh, wow, they traded the local kid. You go trade Elias and Lindholm, oh, that was a useless signing. Like, there's no one else that will have a profound impact on the locker room, the fan base, or anything like that. Those four players are the only four players I think will have a profound impact on the locker room and something you could actually get something for them. Otherwise, this Bruins team is skating in mud. They're going nowhere. If they qualify for the playoffs, they're getting swept in the first round. But fans booed.
It's the same. Listen, it's the same thing in St. Louis, right? They hire Monty. He comes in. They get a little jolt, and now they're terrible again. You can't mask bad rosters,
right?
And
right now,
as much as
roster.
Everyone's talking about this and that, and people want this. There's a couple teams looking at Fredericks. It's like, let him go. We don't have to have a conversation about a guy who's in the bottom six of our lineup.
You want to trade? I like Trent Frederick as much as anybody, but if you can get something good for him, I actually read an article on him. Like, he would be a great fit with a lot of teams because he is that 8-goal, 18-assist guy, willing to mix it up. Great clubhouse guy.
He's a third or fourth line guy.
Absolutely, be a great. And it's in. I wouldn't want to see him go, but the Bruins can get something good for him. Whether it be a high draft pick, whether it be one of these BC guys if they're undrafted that we just saw in the juniors. They're probably all drafted. Yeah, too bad. Yeah. There's a couple of draft eligibles out there I know from the team, but or throughout the tournament. But do you agree? I mean, I can't think of another player other than those four. And I would have added Hampus Lindholm if he was healthy and playing well, but he hasn't played since early November. And he didn't play that great in the second half of the year last year. So I won't even add him. Those are the only four players I think would be of significance if they trade. And they're not going to trade Swayman. They just signed him to forever. So that leaves Marchand and Pasta and McAvoy. I guess McAvoy, he's younger. Pasta, they're probably worried about bad press. I think people could get around Marchand. His skills have diminished the last few
here's
years.
What they have to do is they have to get rid of Don Sweeney and or Cam Neely or both. I mean, there were
well, they better pull. I actually give them credit 2 years ago for pulling those trades in what amounted to be Bergeron's last year, and that was not on Sweeney or Neely. I thought they signed all those guys, those 1 year guys. They made a run. They won the President's Trophy under Montgomery and Marchand's last year, and they didn't go far. That was a blunder either on the coaching staff and or the players. That was not front office management, in my opinion. However, last year when you saw something going on with Montgomery and the players, a little bit, a great year, but again, playoffs. There was rumors of him being fired if they didn't win the first round of the playoffs. I mean, and then to not bring him back this year, but then again, kind of like the Patriots, who did they surround Montgomery with this year to give him success? And then there's rumors of a Pasternak injury. Marchand was coming off surgery where he said, "I won't be myself until January." But even himself is a year older. So it's and McAvoy's been a turnover machine this year and dumb penalties as well. I'm so angry at the Bruins.
Yeah, I mean the funny thing is they still sit in third.
Yeah, they're 5 games in hand though on the Lightning, who are like 2 points behind them.
Yeah, and they play them. They play them next. Well, they got. Yeah. Oh yeah,
Is it 5 games?
No, it is.
Yeah,
it's 5 games.
10 points.
Yeah.
So I won't.
But the Lightning are playing 500 hockey too. So.
Oh yeah, no, the league is.
The league is. Yeah, you only got a few teams. Vegas is 9-1 in the last 10.
How about Edmonton? Edmonton's ridiculous in their last 15 or 16 right now.
7-2-1 in the last 10, but I don't. Yeah, so
go back a little bit further. They're like 12-3-2, something like that over the last 17.
Toronto 7-3 in the last 10. So those are, but everyone else below that, it's like 500.
And that's the other thing, Pat, on the Bruins. There's 2 measuring stick games this year for the Bruins. Like, okay, how are you going to do when you go up against Winnipeg in Winnipeg, and how are you going to do against Edmonton at home? Against Edmonton, a streaking Edmonton team, Connor McDavid and those guys. They laid an egg against Winnipeg. Horrible road loss. And then at home, now they've lost. They haven't won in 5 in a row now, longest streak of the year. To do what they did last night, terrible. I mean, so every time they got this like marquee game, which they may sneak into the playoffs, and that's great. And I'll be rooting for them. And I hope they win the cup, but I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Maybe the Mayor's Cup.
Went to Providence College.
It did.
It's 2-0 over Brown.
Yeah, it's I think big changes need to happen. I don't see Sweeney making it out of the season. There were some fires. Yeah, you don't want to piss off fans in Boston. Everyone knows that, right?
Right.
There's, Gillette Stadium's booing, fire Mayo, whatever it is, and now you got the fire Don Sweeney chants last night in Boston. I mentioned this several times. I mentioned it on our Facebook page, and I mentioned it last night when Paul put me on the spot and had me talk about myself a little bit. But last night's game was refereed by Chris Rooney, who's from South Boston, who I grew up with. His 1500th NHL game. Yes. He's the first American-born referee to reach that milestone, and the 11th referee in league history, which is it's unbelievable. He's been refereeing for 24 years in the NHL. He's done multiple Stanley Cup series. He's done winter, the Winter Classic games. He's done it all. So good guy from a great family. His brother Larry Rooney is the head coach at Catholic Memorial. He's been there for a few. He took over after not right after Hansen left, but shortly after. So he's been there, kind of regrowing that program. Big family from South Boston. Jay Rooney, my brother played with in high school, or actually they played at 7th and 8th graders, and then Jay transferred to a prep school. But so congratulations to Chris Rooney on which I think it's incredible. 1,500 games. I can't even imagine.
He's probably skated. What they said, the average referee skates 6 or 7 miles a game. So so that's at 7 miles a game. That's 10,500 miles he's skated in just the NHL as a referee.
yeah, and he did. I think he did a year or two before, in the AHL.
Oh, probably.
Prior to that,
course, yeah.
He's been referenced since we were little. He'd be down at the rink all the time, refereeing the Mike games, and as a young kid growing up, making a little cash on the side, and just stuck with it. And maybe someday I'll make my my Major League Baseball debut behind the plate.
Keep working.
It'll never happen. It's funny. I showed a video to my son. We were I think it might have been this morning, driving to school. I saw a clip. There was like one of the reels on. I don't have TikTok, but it was on one of the social media things, and it was the dancing umpire from the Savannah Bananas.
Oh, okay.
And I go, hey, yeah. He's a big guy. He has a big beard too, but he's not like a heavy set. But yeah, so he's doing the whole dancing thing. I go, hey, buddy, what do you think? Do you think I should apply for this gig? And he's like, come on, Dad.
Hey, friend of the Cheap Seats, Nate Tellier down in Georgia. We gave him his first professional interview.
That's right.
As a member of the Party Animals. He's down there now, apparently making TikToks. I'm not on TikTok either, but apparently he's doing it. So he's in Georgia now for his training camp, getting ready to start. So we'll be checking in with him on the show at some point during the season. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, a lot of irons in the fire. Is that the saying?
Yeah, I think so.
I think I got a lot of irons in the fire, and hopefully some of them pan out, and which would be interesting. Which would be interesting to see. We'll see. But all right. Well, I don't know. Anything else?
No, actually, I do. Right? I want to thank the people. If I don't know when they're watching this or when they watch it later, to have over 500 people watched on Facebook our show on ON last Saturday. So thank you if you're one of those 500 people. Tune in WON every Saturday. 99.5 FM, 1240 AM, WasakaRadio.com. Call in this Saturday. Phone lines are open, as they say. We want to hear your thoughts on the Patriots and anything else.
And I put it out there on our social media. But so Saturday we're going to do strictly. We'll do a little bit of what we just did, but we want to hear from callers. So call in if you want to talk Pats. What are your thoughts on the firing of Mayo? Where do you see them going? Want to try to get as many callers. Yeah. What else are we gonna say? Tomorrow, not tomorrow night. My days are all off. Friday night, Kevin and I will be at Attleboro High School.
That's right, doing
the girls
Franklin girls basketball. Attleboro with their most impressive win of the season last night. The girls winning by 21 over Oliver Ames, who had previously beaten Foxborough, giving Foxborough their first Hockomock loss in 3 years. Wow. I watched the game last night. I don't know how Oliver Ames beat Foxborough. And I don't want to take anything away from what Attleboro did to Oliver Ames, but it's a very close game. And Pat's getting his feet wet with all this basketball broadcasting.
Yeah, it's good. I'll tell you, this Attleboro boys team is, obviously big game Friday night. They go into Franklin and playing Franklin, who I believe is the number 1 team in the state. They're undefeated.
Yeah, they're undefeated. Attleboro's ranked 4 in the state. Franklin's 8.
2 undefeated teams going head to head, and we'll see who comes out on top. And but Attleboro, they are very, very balanced. I think it's the best way to describe it.
They can go down low and they can shoot lights out from the outside.
And
then you got just the role players of Emmett Hill and Monesteem that can kind of float in the middle. You got LD, you got Orleans down low. You got Crowley, you got Hoole on the outside. And I know I'm missing a few others, but Attleboro's legit this year. They got a shot to make a legit run.
We did mention it on the air last night. This might be their best team since that 2019 team, which featured a kid by the name of Timmy Callahan.
That 2,000 scores on the team.
I think Paul was pretty impressed that I was able to fill in some of the gaps because he had some gaps in his mind. He's like, and I'm like Cicero. He's like, oh yeah.
Nice,
and then he couldn't remember. Yeah, he couldn't remember the last kid. I go Nick McMahon. Nick McMahon. That's right.
And Nick's one of the coaches on Attleboro this year. Lorenzo Wilson's down there. Yeah, so that I
caught him out of the corner. But yeah, so there, and I'll tell you, Montesime is he's a very solid undersized player.
Yeah,
he's a physical undersized kid who he's really impressed me. As obviously JD has, as well as Orleans. LD, yeah, JD.
LD,
yeah, and Orleans is. I mean, he's a big kid. Raheem is. I mean, I told Paul. I said I caught a little bit of the Mansfield game, and there was one in the second half where he went up, got an offensive rebound, literally went straight up in two-hand dunk.
Two-hand dunk.
And I was like, I haven't seen a ton of high school games. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
In Massachusetts. I mean, I've seen it on ESPN, the McDonald's games, all that stuff. But he went up. It was with authority too. I was like, whoa.
I was actually at that game because it was a 4:00 late start. My wife is like, "Hey, you want to go?" I'm like, at 3:00. I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? Yeah, why not? Let's go." We got everything done, like around the house that needed to get done. Almost everything. I still got a tree up behind me, but all the stuff downstairs, all the Christmas stuff's away, all that stuff's packed up. So that was good. But you went and packed house, and that dunk that you mentioned was it wasn't like a show off dunk. It was like the proper positioning to go up and get the necessary 2 point. He was immense in that third quarter. That was a game high. I'm sorry, season high for him where he got 14 points. So good job for him. Off the bench, yeah. He's first one off the bench typically.
They were good. I was interested to see Oliver Rams because they had two kids who have transferred back in from the prep school. This kid Cole Crafty, who he was their leading scorer as a freshman and a sophomore, transferred to a prep school and then transferred back this year. But he had a quiet game. I think he only had 7. But this kid Shuan Surinmade, he had gone up to one of the Lake Region prep schools. I thought they kind of should have kept feeding him the ball. I mean, he went for 21, but he had 21 through 3. He didn't get the ball in the fourth quarter at all. And he was
like a 2-point game after 3 as well.
It was a 2-point game, like late in the third.
2 minutes to go in the third.
Yeah, and then Attleboro just they pulled away. I mean, they really buckled down on the defensive end, and Connor Hools, he's legit. He had 18 last night. Montesime had 12. Crowley can shoot from anywhere. He had 15.
Yeah, and he will.
And then LD had 14, and I think he had 8 rebounds at least. But yeah, so it was a good game. So yeah. Anyway,
in really quick in the girls game, much like the game we did the other day, Avery nothing in the first half, 2 or 3 points in the first half. She goes off for 14 again, 17 or something like that in the third quarter, and ends the game with 23. And Attleboro just pulls away on Avery James in the third quarter. So she finished with 23.
Streaky.
All but 2. She's a second half shooter. She could possibly somehow harness what she does in the third quarter and fourth quarter into the first half. It should be incredible. She'll be going to Nichols next year as well.
She is fun to watch once she starts. Once she starts hitting shots, it's like, all right, here we go.
She'll shoot from anywhere, and they all just start dropping. So,
you can join us, Kevin and I, Friday night. Check out our social media, Facebook page. We'll get the link to that up there. But Friday night, 6:00, It'll be Attleboro versus Franklin girls varsity.
Should be fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, we'll end it, and we'll see everybody. Those of you who want to tune into that game, you'll see us then. But if not, or you won't see us, you'll hear us. You'll see the game. You'll hear us.
You'll see the game, hear us.
And,
Those are what we look like.
We'll see you Saturday morning, 9 o'clock on WOON, 12:40 a.m., 99.5 FM, and windsoccerradio.com. And then like I said, we stream it live on our Facebook page and on the Woonsocket Radio YouTube channel. So ON Worldwide, at ON Worldwide on YouTube for that. But as always, we put the links in our social media, so check us out there.
Yeah.
All right, my friend.
All right.
Get some rest. I'll talk to you.
Sounds good. Have a good night.